No one in São Paulo knew the midnight alleys better than Eduardo Farias, an investigative journalist with a reputation for obsession. He was the kind of man who wouldn't sleep until he had a story in his hands. And he had already gone head-to-head with politicians, drug lords, and even corrupt cops. But nothing had prepared him for what he stumbled upon on an ordinary Tuesday night. Eduardo was alone at home, going over notes for a story, when the television suddenly flickered. The remote lay on the table, untouched. Without warning, the screen cut away from the news and switched to a channel he had never seen before. The picture was grainy, the sound faint, like an old broadcast from another era. On the screen, a disturbing scene unfolded. A man sprinting through a dimly lit alley, chased by another wielding a knife. The journalist froze in place. The murder played out in brutal detail, and then the screen went black. Confused, he searched for the channel number, but nothing appeared. No record, no trace. It was as if it didn't exist at all. The next day, Eduardo dismissed the incident as a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. Then, as he flipped through the morning paper, his blood ran cold. On the front page, the headline, "A homicide downtown, in the very same alley," exactly as he had seen on the television. Eduardo didn't know it yet, but that night had only been the beginning. The mysterious channel would return, always showing crimes that had not yet taken place. And with every broadcast, it would pull him deeper into a maze with no way out. Eduardo couldn't ignore it. The following night, he waited for the clock to strike 2 in the morning and turned on the TV, almost against his own will. The screen flickered once again, and the same channel appeared on its own. This time, it was a small room. A woman with long hair was tied to a chair, crying in silence. The camera seemed hidden in a corner of the ceiling, like an unbelieving eye watching without being seen. Suddenly, a raspy voice cut through the silence. "You know you can't escape." Eduardo leaned forward, holding his breath. This didn't feel like a recording at all. It was live. The next day, he rushed to the police station. The detective who received him shook his head, skeptical. "A channel that shows murders before they happen? You're kidding me, Farias?" Eduardo answered, steady but with a trembling voice. "I saw it. 2 crimes, exactly as they were reported afterward. This isn't a coincidence." The detective laughed, but his eyes carried a trace of unease. It was as if he was afraid to believe. That night, Eduardo locked himself inside his apartment once more. He felt the weight of solitude, but also a strange thrill like standing before something forbidden, something no one else dared to witness. His heart pounded, a chaotic rhythm of adrenaline and fear. When the TV switched on by itself again, Eduardo noticed the image was sharper this time. He recognized the street on the screen. It was the very street where he lived. The camera revealed an empty street. Headlights in the distance cut through the fog, but Eduardo recognized every detail. The leaning streetlight, the graffiti-covered wall, the bakery on the corner. It was his street. His heart began to race. He rushed to the window, and for a moment, he convinced himself the broadcast was nothing more than a trick of the mind. But when he looked back at the TV, he noticed something that stole the air from his lungs. On the screen, the camera was moving. It was advancing slowly toward the building where he lived. Eduardo grabbed the phone and tried calling the police, but the line dropped into absolute silence. He ran to the door, but the lock was jammed, trapped. The broadcast now showed the facade of his own apartment. The lens climbed floor by floor, until it reached the window of the very room where he stood. On the screen, Eduardo saw himself motionless, his face pale, staring at the television. "No, this isn't possible," he whispered, his voice breaking. And then, for the first time, the camera inside the TV began to turn. It revealed a figure standing behind him, frozen in the shadows. Eduardo spun around, but the room was empty. When he looked back at the screen, the figure moved swiftly like a blur. The image cut to static. The next morning, neighbors found the apartment empty. chair knocked over on the floor. There was no sign of Eduardo. But that very night, at exactly 2 o'clock, the phantom channel returned to the air, and the scene it showed was always the same. Eduardo, forever sitting before the television, trapped inside the broadcast.